Hello? Hello. Alright. So today I'm gonna talk about why finals is, to me at least, a 7 out of 10 experience. And let me explain that a little bit. Like, 7 out of 10 does not necessarily mean it's a bad experience. You know what I'm saying? There are fun moments in this game, and a lot of it has to do with just the gunplay, the game mode, and pretty much like the overall, like, I suppose, flow of it. But at the same time, this game does have its flaws. And I guess one of the flaws of this game is kind of like how the general movement feels. Now, I'm not trying to say the movement abilities are bad. Like, Grapple's fucking baller ability, I'm saying. Like, it feels really good. This Grapple probably, like, it's up there in terms of, like, Grapples in video games, you know what I'm saying? I'm more so talking about the general, like, just moving around the map without those abilities. So, think of, like, not having jump pad, think of not having grapple, evasive dash, or charge, I guess, for heavy. Like, just general mantling and stuff. There seems to be a little bit of a, it's not a disconnect, but it feels very, I guess, sensitive, if you know what I'm trying to say. So what I mean by this is, like, say I try to, I don't know, I want to, like, hang on, like, a ledge or something. I want to, like, just want to, like, shoot from down here, you know what I'm saying? Get an angle, stuff like that. It's very easy to just, like, fall off like this. Other games, such a, like, I guess the one game that's a lot of people are comparing this to is, well, Apex, right? Apex, you can sit on that ledge, no problem, because I guess it's part of the movement system to be on that ledge. This game is a little bit different in the sense that, like, well, when I try to, like, just, peek a corner or something from this ledge angle, I tend to just fall off very, very easily. Like, I guess the margin for error staying on this ledge is, like, very minuscule, you know what I'm saying? Like, here, I would still be on the ledge in Apex, for example. What I compared it to is because, well, a lot of people are kind of saying this is the Apex killer, the COD killer. I can see it being the COD killer, mostly because COD is already dead, but, like, I feel like in terms of Apex movement, at least, it kind of, like, clears in terms of that. That's not the only thing, obviously. So the whole, like, sliding in this game, you're not really getting as much distance. Like, momentum in this game feels less, like, visceral than as it would in Apex. Like, a slide in Apex would take you to, like, here at least or something like that, just because you have so much more momentum in that game. And this game is a little bit different in the sense that, like, I guess it's more grounded reality. It's kind of just up to you, like, for preference, which you would like better. For me, I personally like the movement because you can do more in Apex. There's, like, sliding and stuff, right? Not to mention, like, wall bounces and all those techs. But another little thing is kind of like the whole, I think for me, it's kind of just the whole ledge mantling system, where it feels very sensitive, or it's, like, quick to, how do I describe this? It's quick to actually, the game is quick to, like, want you to, like, ledge into, or, like, go into something, you know what I'm saying? Apex, you have that, like, I guess you have a larger window to cancel what you're doing, as opposed to in finals where, like, once you do an action, it's very hard to just interrupt said action. In that sense, there's less control in that way. Or maybe there's a higher skill expression, whatever the two. For me, it's mostly just annoying because the same things I could do in Apex, for example, I can't really do as well in this game because this game just makes it harder to do, you know what I'm saying? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but for some, it, like, just makes the experience a lot more frustrating. Because, again, like, I could literally, in Apex, I would be able to just, like, cancel a mantle pretty much. So, like, from here, you can go, like, well, also, like, climbing in Apex is way better. Like, I would be able to go to, like, second window in Apex here easily because I'm able to climb. The extent of, like, climbing in this, mantling climbing this game is pretty much like a jump height, a little bit more than your jump height. Like, from here, I would be able to wrap around, climb up the side in Apex, and go on the roof, you know what I'm saying? To do that in this game, you need a grapple, or take the ladder, jump pad. Like, it's not necessarily that big of an issue, but, like, I guess when you're not running those abilities, or have those abilities in general, it's a lot harder to move in like, this game than it is in Apex. Like, you can just do less, pretty much. I want to find an example where I can, like, actually grapple. Well, like this, right? It's way harder to cancel going in. In Apex, I'm able to cancel like that relatively quickly. I think in this game is a little, like, the timing is a little off, I would say. Where it feels very much uninterruptible sometimes when you want to like ledge into something. Like you could in Apex, you could literally stick to this wall like fucking Spider-Man, bro. So I think for some, like it's a little bit of a turn off. It's just a different movement system in my mind, though. Like this game is very much more. It's more comparable to COD than Apex in my mind. Like Apex, sure with the abilities, but in terms of like movement, like boots on the ground combat, it feels very much so kind of COD stuff. You know what I'm saying? I haven't really played the recent CODs, but like I guess the most recent like COD experience, COD-like experience I can compare it to, is X Defiant. In my experience, at least, X Defiant had way better movement than Finals, at least in terms of like without abilities, obviously. Like on the just the general boots on the ground, like strafing, sliding, stuff like that. I think X Defiant had a little bit more momentum. I think this game like it kind of like kills your momentum when you try to like slide, for example. It doesn't feel as good. Like it doesn't like slingshot you as it would in X Defiant, for example. X Defiant just had better like acceleration, deceleration. It's not really something like that's too much of a downside. But again, it's a little like tiny tidbit. Like if you've played these other games, you would be kind of annoyed with it. You know what I'm saying? It's little small things that add up over time. Like this game isn't inherently bad with the movement. Like as long as you get used to it. But what it feels like feels like Mario Kart like baby control in a way, where the game almost kind of does the movement for you. In Apex, there's a lot of like skill expression in it. I think this game, like you kind of just you're able to just mantle through a window and like get fucking auto gravitational pulled into it somewhat. Like there's a way larger window to actually like hit one of these climb ups, you know what I'm saying? In Apex, like you either hit the climb up or you have to like fucking if you miss the timing you would have to like climb up through the wall, you know what I'm saying? So there's that skill expression to separate the bad from the good movers in Apex. The people who can like leverage the movement system to its full extent. I think in this game it's very much more homogenized in the sense of like, well, pretty much like after like maybe like 2 hours of just like playing the game and trying to move in it, you kind of have like all the movement text that you would need. You know what I'm saying? And the rest are just like via abilities, either like grapple, jump pad, etc. Like there's not too much expression for like movement in this game. It kind of is really just you kind of just learn it in 2 hours and you're pretty much like near the skill cap of it in my mind. Sure, there's like probably some crazy ass tech and shit like that, but it's not really as serviceable in this game because of the format, which is kind of like another gripe slash strength of it. It's a strength in the sense that like I really like this game's format. Like I think the whole it's like it's like a Bangfold thing, right? It feels very much like a Spike thing in Valorant, for example, where you're playing for time and shit, where you have to like stop defusals or in this case like steals and like play around it. You have like lurking opportunities, stall util, that kind of stuff, and this is something I really like. Like there's a lot of people who play Valorant, so having that kind of like mechanic to draw those people in makes sense, right? I also just tend to really like those mechanics in general. Like it's probably one of the bigger strengths. But another really cool thing is the whole like respawn mechanic in this game. What's really unique in this game is like I've never really seen a game have such a like a it borrows a little bit from Apex in the sense that like you feel like you have one life sometimes, in the sense that like you get rezzed. If you die for a very long time, that sort of thing. But you could also just respawn in it. There's like a weird in between of the whole Apex timer and I guess something, for example, from like Call of Duty or Overwatch, where in Overwatch, Call of Duty, you would obviously just like respawn. You know what I'm saying? Like after maybe like 6-7 seconds, there's a respawn. In Apex, there's only just one life, and then you probably get downed and you can get res, etc., etc. There's sort of like a dynamic there where Finals kind of mixes the two. You know what I'm saying? Like you can respawn like you would in Overwatch, Call of Duty, but it takes a little bit longer. And then you could also get rezzed when you get downed, or I guess in this case killed. And then you could get res to like be in a better position faster, right? So there's an interesting dynamic there where like I haven't really seen that like type of thing explored in mainstream games, at least the games I've played. Like usually Call of Duty, Overwatch, Apex, Valorant, that kind of stuff. Like there's not really too much stuff going there in terms of mixing the like rezzing as well as like having multiple lives and respawns. Like that's just really cool to me, and that's really something the game has like nailed. The format, I would say, like the format of this game is really fun. The fact that I can res my homies and like get them up and get them in a better position to fight like more rapidly, or even if like I failed to do that, we can just respawn the next life and go back again. Like there's not really too much stress in the situation, at least for the casual mode. I know in ranked there's the whole being penalized for like getting team wiped and shit, but I'm mostly just playing the casual mode for now, which I think is a bop. I think the casual mode has nailed that right. There's not really too much stress going on, but there's still stakes. You know what I'm saying? Like if you get team wiped, that's still like a 20-second delay between like trying to get the spike and stuff. So you're kind of penalized in that sense, but it's not as high as like having only one life in Valorant or like having only one life in Apex. You know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of nuance there. So I really enjoyed the game mode in that sense. But I think what the game mode does to the movement system in this game is it makes it very campy. Because of the whole like defensive nature of like the vault and stuff, you have to play around your vault and defense as you would in like a Valorant spike or something. You're not really leveraging movement abilities to like you aren't incentivized to, I should say. Actually, you can use movement abilities obviously to like maybe rotate around, get an angle through a roof that you blown up or something like that, but the game doesn't really incentivize you for it. Like the whole reason why, for example, I guess the meta nowadays are like one heavy, two mediums, is because you are incentivized to like get like mines or like you're like get defensive util rather than offensive movement based util. You would rather get the more stationary defensive util. Like there's some really degenerate strategies out there, sort of like, for example, like having fucking sentry guns from the medium and just like having 3 of them in a room or something. That's super degenerate, for example. As well as like double bubble from heavies. Like they get access to a frontal shield as well as a bubble shield. You're not really utilizing movement to get in per se with that one. Like you kind of just have to shoot through it sometimes or wait it out, or util that shit with nades. But like using movement to get in the bubble is not really that viable of a strategy because again, like there's mediums that could just heal them up or just shoot you through the shields, because in this game they can shoot through shields, sort of like in Overwatch. So I think for I guess the mode, it really discourages the use of movement in this game because, well, you're much better off just holding a fucking corner with holding util or defensive util with a shield, landmines, sentry turret, etc. You're much more incentivized to do that and just chill in a corner and camp than you are to like use a jump pad or use a grapple or fucking blinks or something. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just so much easier to just like sit in a corner perma invis on light than it is to use a grapple invasive dash to actually fight people, because that's just the type of game mode it is. So while I do like the game mode and like what it tries to what it does to bring I guess gamers from other games to try it out and be familiar with it, I feel like it also just discourages the use of movement. There's some people that might just suck. Some people like that, I guess. Like, it just depends on the type of gamer you are. I think for me, it's kind of like, whatever. I think for me, I appreciate the movement in the game, but I also understand that it's kind of like, the OBJ kind of disincentivizes it, you know what I'm saying? So until they make, like, I guess, movement stronger in that sense, but people are going to still be using Cloak Invis, for example, because it's just like the most busted shit on light. People are still going to be using Double Bubble on heavy because like it's just better than charge, you know, that kind of stuff. Like because statistically, these other more movement-based abilities can't really compete. So you're kind of devolving the game into like a boots on the ground COD camper in a way, where you just kind of like sit in corners, hold OBJ. And not really using leveraging the movement system, right? Because the movement system, for at least without the use of abilities, isn't really that great. It's kind of like whatever. You kind of learn it in like 2 hours, and you're kind of done with it for most purposes. I would say like it's not that difficult to grasp that you can like mantle through a window like this, for example, and like shoot people. It's not really that interesting without the use of abilities, at least. And because of the objective, the use of abilities or movement abilities isn't really used nearly as much as it should be. Like jump pad is kind of just whatever. It kind of you use it to scale building or like go into a window or something like that. That's kind of the extent of it. I think, for example, grapple hook though, like grapple hook is just really fun. Like great ability is just like very underutilized because cloak is just so much better. You know what I'm saying? And I wish that more like heavies use charge because I think charge is a really fucking cool ability. But again, it's not really as good as like having the frontal shield because the frontal shield is just statistically better than charge. You know what I'm saying? I don't think charge you don't really get damage reduction charge, do you? Like I don't remember, but like statistically, you're just a better meat shield via the shield than you are using charge aggressively, and that's just kind of the nature of the game. Like you want to use defensive abilities to defend the spike, as well as the defensive abilities already being statistically stronger than the movement abilities. Like grapple has been cooled on for like fucking centuries at this point, compared to like cloaking, where I could just deactivate it, activate it when I need to, and have perma up 10 with that cloak. Like statistically, I'm just like inferior to every cloak light out there. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I have over is like that one burst of movement every so often. So that's what I mean by like this, the game mode disincentivizing movement abilities. There's not really too much, like there's not too much reason to use movement abilities other than having fun. But then you kind of just lose out statistically to the people using the more defensive abilities. And once you like devolve this game into a game where no one's using a movement abilities and it's just like boots on the ground movement, like that's where I think this game kind of lacks or suffers, because the movement in the system isn't really nuanced enough for me to like actually care too much about it. Like it's okay, it's serviceable, but like again, it's not really Apex, you know what I'm saying? Like Apex, you have movement abilities all the time. This game, you can have movement abilities, but it's not really used. Well, you shouldn't use it as much if you want to win, for example. It's mostly just to have fun, because like in this game, defensive util is just way better, in my opinion. And I think that's pretty much it, other than the fact that like, I guess one thing to talk about is the whole breaking buildings, because that in theory should counter the defensive util, you know what I'm saying? Like, if they're holding a fucking building with 3 turrets and shit, well, something you can do, at least on like, what's it called? Fucking breach charge, yeah. One thing you can do on scout, if there's like, say for example, there's a bomb up here, you just chuck a breach charge, blow it under with a breach charge, and yeah, you kind of like sink it down a lower level. Well, say for example they had like turrets here, or they're just kind of holding invis in that corner. Well, now you have like the vault down here or something. The whole idea of this is just like, the whole idea of this whole breaching mechanic is similar to 6 Siege, where you kind of just open up like opportunities for yourself to breach defensive setups that the team was holding. So for example, there's a guy right here, right? And you fucking drop the OBJ down there. Well, now this guy has to push forward and like hold here, right? That kind of stuff. Like, he could have had like a turret up here, turret up there or something, lane match, just like spread around the floor. But you just kind of blowing this up underneath, like, invalidates all that defensive too. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. That's the whole idea of like the breach chart, or I guess just destroying debris in this game. The issue comes when like, well, multiple teams like start doing this shit, where it becomes a fucking incomparable mess of like shit, where basically you have multiple angles of approach, and like this second floor that used to have like some sort of defensive hold onto something is now just an open crater for like basically anyone to shoot at you. On top of that, some maps in this game have some egregious, or some points of interest in this game have egregious, I guess, debris fallout. This building doesn't really showcase it that all too much, but there's this one one building in particular where the bomb spawns. It's like a 2-story, 3-story house with like an attic, and it's like perfectly symmetrical or something. But I had like some friends play with me, and basically the Bank Vault like spawned in there, and what ended up happening was everyone started like breaching this building because it was like fully destructible or something. And basically the attic kind of caved in onto itself of the building, and like you just had like roofs just slanted, just kind of roofs just like spilled into like the first floor, for example. And you had this situation where I guess you couldn't really move in it per se. Like you would just have like debris just blocking all over you. I'm sure we all had those moments where like we're stuck under a fucking piece of concrete, like a square concrete thing that just fell on us, and we're just kind of stuck in here. And then we would have to like somehow shimmy our way out with, because we don't have any like movement abilities or anything like that. We would just have to try to shimmy our way out melee, but we're just kind of stuck in there, and like basically rendered useless throughout like whatever was going on. You know what I'm saying? Because like we're stuck on a piece of terrain. I think for sure the move, or I guess the debris, should be kind of more optimized to like let the player be able to move despite having like fallen debris on them and shit. I know it's like it might be a mechanic, but I think it's just like plain old frustrating. Because the whole point of a breach charge or like this whole destructibility element is to open up angles like this, right? Like say if they're holding second floor, you can open up a roof angle and start shooting, blasting at them. They have to respect that. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same idea in Rainbow Six Siege. But what it becomes sometimes is like a whole like cesspool of just random debris falling and blocking like a lot of sight lines on the first floor, for example. Like you can have just like a random piece of terrain fall on you from here if you're just holding here, and then get stuck under it and be just like have a 2v3 pretty much because you're just useless and your two other teammates have to fight that for you. You know what I'm saying? Like that just seems weird to me. I think the player models should have like some sort of ability to get out of those situations, or at least try to move at least, or be able to like shoot back, because again, this is just basically disabled that if you don't have like a if you don't have like breaching util back or like someone to help you get out, you're kind of just stuck there until the rest of the team fight. It's really RNG when it comes to it, because the interactions with the player model and the debris in this game is just so weird. Like I don't even fully understand it. And I feel like the whole point of this debris thing is just opening up angles like this. It's not to make confusion. If it is, then that's just bad game design. But in my opinion, it's more so just to break the defensive setups to make it so that, for example, offensive util is more strong. It's to make like the more offensive movement-based util like just as strong as the defensive holds in this game. The defensive utils, like having sentry turrets, landmines, etc. It makes it so like having a grapple on scout, or I mean light, makes sense, because then you could just like grapple up, breach satchel, and blow it up, and have an angle. And that's like just like in theory, that's as strong as having like being cloaked in a corner as scout and holding for bomb, right? Because now you have like an angle to shoot at the rest of their team. I think in practice, though, it's a little bit rough because, again, the debris, this map, this building doesn't really showcase it too much, but the debris in this map, like, just makes it weird in terms of, I guess, like, helping out your team and stuff like that, because, again, like, if you're just a scout, or if you're a light on roof as the rest of your team just pushes under, like, blowing this shit up can actually fuck over your team, right? Because if you drop random debris on them, and like stall their movement because of the debris, they get stuck on the debris and shit, that is actually a deficit, more so a deficit to your team than a positive of you having this angle in the first place. Because then you're slowing down two teammates with you being the only one able to shoot people on second floor. Like, it's just how it is, you know what I'm saying? So I think they should remove debris in this game while keeping the idea of the breach charge in, because I think the breach charge makes it a really interesting dynamic between movement-based abilities and more offensive abilities and defensive setups and holds, you know what I'm saying? Because that makes, for example, charge a bit more viable, because then you could just like, you would be able to like charge in, like, say if it's like Fullis right here, you're able to like charge, create a hole here, go out, scout for info, get regens, and then like repeat the same hole and stuff like that. You have like interactions like that where maybe shield isn't the only viable thing on heavy, where you can actually use charge viably, stuff like that. And I feel like that's pretty much my only nitpicks with this game. I think this game has a lot of potential. I think the abilities are really good. There's a lot of like different crossover from different games. Obviously, you have the Mercy Beam in the form of Healing Beam here. I think that's pretty cool. But I think just the idea of having like, what is it? I think like four basically util slash abilities. You have 3 forms of like nades or util, as well as like a main ability. I think it's a really cool, neat idea, because it reminds me a bit of Valorant in a way, where you can chuck a util and it's on an egregiously long cooldown, obviously. But that's just kind of like, for example, the Valorant model where you only have limited amounts of util and you have to use them sparingly and like try to use them when you need them. You know what I'm saying? You can't just spam it like in, for example, I guess Overwatch or Apex. Like you have to. It's like a full scarcity, I guess, in that sense, where you use the util when you need them, and it feels like Valorant because there's so much like different pieces of util that you're like given access to at once. A lot of them are nades, obviously, but a lot of them are really cool, like this quick res or jump pad on medium. There's really cool options, and I like the whole idea of like just mixing a lot of different elements from different games because you have nades from, I guess you have nades from like, this is one thing this game has over Apex, for example. You have so many different nades. I think on Light you have this like kind of invis nade or something. Yeah, vanishing bomb, where you literally chuck it at yourself and turn you and whoever's in that radius like invisible, which I think is a really cool idea. Like that's something Apex literally only has like 3 nades or something, 4 if you count Fuze's fucking primary fire or something. Like this game has a lot more nades, more similar, reminiscent to like Valorant, but like the abilities are just wacky. It feels more so like a blend of Valorant nades mixed with Overwatch in a sense. Well, there goes my connection. But I think like the entire, I guess this kind of boils down to like this game has a lot of potential with the abilities. I think the game mode is also kind of fire, but the gunplay is also very nice too. It's just as your typical like COD arcade shooter. It feels pretty good. I think the only downsides of this game is again like they have to work on the debris, drop off kind of thing. Like just falling debris and stuff blocking your character model just seems kind of weird to me. Like makes it like it makes destruction way more RNG than it needs to be. Like the whole idea of a destruction in this game is pretty much just to open up an angle for you to like shoot at. So it kind of balances out the offensive util versus the defensive util, if you know what I'm saying. Another thing is, well, the movement, it feels very much, there's not really too much expression going on for like the most part, at least in my opinion. Like what you need in the game, like what is serviceable to you to like do well in this game, you can like learn in 2 hours pretty much. I feel like in Apex at least it takes, there's so much like grinding in Apex with the movement. Like you can do so many cool things with it and actually basically win entire gunfights with movement alone in that game. I think this game you probably just spend 2 hours playing it and you probably you would get like near the skill ceiling of the movement system in this game. It's not really too complex of a movement system. And for some it feels pretty jank. At least if you play like other games. I think for the most part this game is really good. I think it has a lot of potential as long as they fix like the little nitty-gritty details. I think it can be like a major competitor to Apex, for example, like the Apex for Valorant players. Because one thing that isn't really necessarily said is this game is very approachable, I would say. Like this game, you don't have to have good aim, for example. There are, options like you have Red Shield in this game, you have shotties, you have like sniper rifles. There's so many like cool options in this game that are actually viable. In Apex, a lot of the viable elements in that game consist of like, I guess, a submachine guns up close, or maybe assault rifles, and like maybe snipers long range, but they're all projectiles and stuff. I know this game, a lot of the things in this game are hit scan, so it makes a lot more sense to like Valorant players, for example, who don't have to deal with the projectile fall off and shit like that, at least in Apex. And it makes a bit sense that this game exists because I think it's a really good gateway into like the whole movement arcadey shooter for at least people like Valorant players, for example. That's like I believe the main demographic of this game, as well as like they're trying to siphon the Apex players as well. But this game is pretty much this game only has the game mode over Apex in my mind. I think the shooting in Apex for me feels more satisfying. The movement feels more satisfying in Apex as well. I feel like the only reason Apex players are flocking to this game is because, well, it's new content, as well as like kind of the hot thing of the, like, it's the hot game of the month, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of views and a lot of attention, like, surrounding this game. A lot from the Valorant community, a lot from the Apex community. It just makes economically more sense to stream this game over Apex, because, again, Apex has been kind of the same game for, like, a couple months now. There hasn't been really too much content drop recently in that game. Like, the most that would ever happen is probably, like, a map rework, or maybe like, I don't know, like a legend dropping and stuff like that. But the new legend is kind of like A lot of people don't like the new legend because like it reminds them of Double Shield from Overwatch. But, like basically the whole idea of it is like people are unkillable because of this like whole legend that can buff HP essentially. So people are like flocking to this game for I guess those reasons, mostly like the staleness of Apex as well as like it I guess finals being a lot more having a lot more attention and like numbers surrounding it. I would imagine that like when if this game like drops off, people kind of would return to like their main games because well, this game it's alright, but again, it's just kind of like flavor of the month material in my mind, where there's not enough substance there in terms of the whole like having guns and stuff like that. It's just mostly because like the whole I guess breach. No, it's more so like the defensive util just being way too strong. Like you could invis in a corner on light pretty much for the entirety of the duration of the bomb, and people won't see you. You just one clip them as they try to take it, or you can pretty much just like go double shield on heavy and try to actually stall your way through and just have a healing medium up your ass. You know what I'm saying? Like the strats in this game are like getting or devolving into something a lot more degenerate than I would like. Mostly because it just becomes way more campy than it needs to. Especially when you have like gas mines, landmines, all that kind of stuff in this game. Like for me personally, like I would like the more offensive movement based abilities to be generally stronger because they take more skill than the whole like holding a shield or something like that. Like I don't think holding a shield in this game takes that much skill, I'm gonna be honest. Or dropping a dome shield like around the fucking objective. Like that to me doesn't really take too much skill. So there's that whole element of like this game will get stale if the meta is like gearing towards the defensive util, mostly just by nature of like holding a corner is inherently way easier than trying to push one. And as long as they like try to move it in a direction where it's more movement based, I feel like people will stick around this game mostly because it just has so many interesting elements to it. But if it goes on the current trend of like having useless abilities compared to defensive ones, or the movement being still like not as clean, not as grindable as other games, or maybe if the debris stays the way it is and makes like blowing a roof on or blowing a satchel like blowing walls and stuff not as viable because it kind of slows down your team with the debris. I feel like this game will die off like relatively quickly, but it all just depends on like the developers' next steps here. Like I don't really know what their vision for this game is. I do remember they nerfed movement back in the beta, and that sparked like a massive Valkyrie or something like that. I don't think you should nerf movement in this game because, well, movement in this game is what will keep it alive. I think the more degenerate this game becomes, the worse it will be in the long run, and the quicker it will die. Because I don't know, I don't think a lot of people will enjoy that that type of gameplay, just holding the objective with like a shield and a healing beam and like landmines and turrets. Like it doesn't really lend itself for like an interesting gaming experience. I think this game is most experienced when it's more fast paced. And the way you make it more fast paced is just by fixing movement or making movement a bit more I kind of get where they're coming from. They're making it more approachable to like newer players, I guess, like the Valorant players specifically. Is like, well, they're not really geared towards movement shooters. It's more so like a tactical shooter, obviously, right? So having that movement like approachable to those folks makes it so that like those folks can get into this game a bit easier. But I don't think we should, I guess, narrow the skill ceiling of the movement system so hard, where you can spend 2 hours of the game just like playing it and already get the gist of like what this game movement system has to offer. Like in Apex, like people are discovering new techs years after the movement system has been like changed or reworked or whatever. Like at this point, like there's so many cool movement techs in Apex that like not even I can do after just by having like there's movement techs that I can't even do in this game that like people are still grinding and discovering. So like that movement system has so much grindability. This one, not so much. I don't really see the vision for it, the like need for it either. Apex, it makes more sense because, well, like you can actually out movement someone and like win a gunfight because of movement. This game is more so just like when to use movement, where to use it, rather than like doing, pulling insane tech and shit like that. I don't think this game has too much depth there to it in its movement system. I think the like whole debris, like blowing shit up kind of system in this game needs a little bit of a rework, because I don't think like it should leave debris. Like it should only leave the angle open. Like that's what it does in Six Siege at least. I'm assuming they're going for like a Six Siege approach as well, because that makes like sense to me. If they're making it more chaotic by like having debris and like making it slow down like whoever is down on that floor level, I don't think breach charges or anything like that, like destructive util, would be as valuable, because again, you're kind of fucking over your team sometimes when you do it. It's like you're leaving it to RNG when it shouldn't be RNG based in the first place. It should be a skill expression thing, like knowing where to breach satchel, knowing when, like choosing to use offensive util over defensive util via like the charge on the heavy to create like those openings and those angles to like shoot people in. I feel like that lends itself way better than just the oh ho haha funny, this is like our fucking niche, this is our fucking little like weird mechanic that we have over here, this is why you should play finals, because we blow up shit, it makes it really funny. No, you shouldn't have that, because again, it doesn't lend itself very well in the long run. Like if you want to make this a competitive shooter, which is what I'm assuming you're trying to compete with the Valorants, the Apexes, the Overwatch 2s, you should make the mechanics make sense. You know what I'm saying? You should make them have skill ceilings so that people actually want to play the game, other than just wanting to shoot people, which I guess like shooting is okay, but I don't know if it'll last very long is the issue. Like people are grinding mechanics and stuff obviously, but like you want something more than just shooting, at least in my opinion. And that's why it's a 7 out of 10 experience. Hope you enjoyed my talk.